2023 may be over, but the torrent of new metal albums,
it never ends.
These are some of the most anticipated albums to look forward to in 2024, and we're starting on January 12th with Bring Me the Horizon, Post-Human Next Gen.
I hope you have fun.
Probably not the most exciting place to start for most of my audience, but don't worry, we're gonna get to the good stuff. Honestly, I've never been the biggest fan of these guys, but they are an interesting one to watch given their constant genre switching, and the last singles were pretty fun. I've already gone through the back catalog to do a tier list when this drops. Next up on January 14th, we're supposed to get Coma Cluster Void with Absurd Romanticism. Fans of Gorguts and Artificial Brain, I hope you also have these guys on your list as well. Featuring Mike DeSalvo, formerly of Cryptopsy, and drummer Austin Lee Taylor of Through the Eyes of the Dead, this is an incredible project that especially blew me away with 2016's Mind Cemeteries. Moving to January 19th, we have Resin Tomb with Cerebral Purgatory. This Australian death metal band has been making a name for itself over their EPs, and now they're taking that energy into their first full length. I've already had the pleasure of hearing this one, and it is gnarly. January 26th is the first big release week of 2024, and it is packed. We have Static X with Project Regeneration Volume 2. I still have some mixed feelings about continuing this band without Wayne, but Volume 1 was surprisingly great, and as someone who loved this band in the early 2000s, at the height of nu metal and industrial metal, I'm actually pretty stoked to talk about this. Another tier list I've been planning for some time now, as a big fan of Wisconsin Death Trip going back in the day. Then we have Knoll with As Spoken. This Tennessee band brings a delightful mix of death, grind, and noise. Myself and many in the audience really enjoyed 2022's Metempiric, and I look forward to having my brain scrambled once more. Then there's Cognizance with Fantazine. UK tech death that's been kicking around since 2012, but it wasn't really until the last 5 years that they started putting out full lengths. This is their third record following up 2021's Upheaval, another one I have listened to and highly recommend. Also from this week that I've heard is Vitriol with Suffer and Become. This Portland death metal band goes about as fast and loud as they come. Think Demigod era Behemoth, but more technical and pissed off. I've had my qualms with the sheer intensity and density of their music. It becomes berating sometimes, and you can even kind of tune out the finer details. But rest assured, people will be talking about this one when it comes back, and I highly recommend giving it multiple listens, because there's a lot to peel back here. Then there's also Exocrine with Legend. One of my favorite underrated modern technical death metal bands. They came up around the same time as Archspire and should appeal to a similar fan base, but just have never gotten as big. This is their 6th album, and having already again heard it, I can't recommend them enough just in general. Go back and listen to their other albums before this one came out. They're all good. Then we have Blood Red Throne with Nonagon. Formed all the way back in 1998, this Norwegian death metal band is ready to follow up Imperial Congregation from 2021. We'll have to see where those 3 years have taken them. Then we have Inquisition with Veneration of Medieval Mysticism and Cosmological Violence.
Oop, no clip. Oop, thought we had a clip.
If you're among the people who have written this band off, I totally get it, but that said, Black Mass for a Mass Grave ended up being one of my favorite albums of 2020, and among their best to date. So as someone willing to give second chances and ultimately more interested in the music than the musicians, I'm looking forward to this.
You are a bad, bad person.
Moving to February 1st, we have Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum with Of the Last Human Being. I talked about this crew recently in one of my weirdest metal bands videos, and now they are making a return after 13 years. I swear I have a knack for it, where I'll make a video about a band and they'll announce a new album. It's great. Maybe I should do that more. Necrophagist, here we come. You can already hear opening track Salamander in Two Worlds. If you love the avant-garde, mark your calendar for this one. February 2nd brings us a bunch of stuff. We have Ghoul with Noxious Concoctions. A new EP from these California masked death thrashers. For whatever reason, I've never really jumped on the bandwagon in the last 20 plus years they've been around, but maybe this will get me more interested. We also have Persephone with Lingua Ignota, Part 1. Another EP, this one from one of my favorite up-and-coming progressive metal bands. They've also been around over 20 years, which is crazy, but I feel like it's only been recent that they've been gathering some real momentum. Metanoia was one of my favorite albums of 2022, so I look forward to more. And we also have Enterprise Earth with Death, an anthology. One of the modern darlings of deathcore back with their fourth record. I've had mixed feelings about their albums, mostly due to some pretty bad clean vocals, to be honest, here and there. But given that Travis Warland has now taken over after Dan Watson's departure, this may be the record that really wins me over. Having a feature from Ben Dur of Shadow of Intent never hurts either. February 9th, we have a bunch of stuff. We got Chelsea Wolfe with She Reaches Out to Me. Not metal, but I know a lot of metal fans who enjoy Chelsea's work, and I really enjoyed her collab with Converge for Blood Moon, so we'll see how this turns out. We also have Infected Rain with Time. Never been a big fan of this band either. There are things I like, but the vocals feel kind of silly to me at times. I'm getting OTEP vibes, which is never a great thing.
Endless trash!
That said, I always look forward to a band surprising me and finally winning me over, so we'll just have to see. On a bigger note, we have Morbid Saint with Swallowed by Hell. Morbid Saint are responsible for one of the most underrated thrash metal albums of all time in Spectrum of Death from 1989. It wasn't until 2015 that they followed that up, and now, almost a decade later, they're getting their third full-length LP in Swallowed by Hell. I'm always skeptical about comeback albums, but given how strong many of those were last year, I'm hoping that this continues that trend. Then we have The Last 10 Seconds of Life with No Name Graves. Getting some deathcore on the radar here with this Pennsylvania crew formed in 2010. Big, dumb, super heavy stuff with plenty of breakdowns. I enjoyed the previous release quite a bit, so count me interested, even if I tend to be a little picky when it comes to this genre. We also have Spectral Voice with Sporagmos. Denver has an amazing metal scene, and this death doom band is just one of their many dark and menacing exports. It's been 7 years since the debut, so I'm hoping that in that time they've managed to really kill it with this one. And we have Hannes Grossman with Echoes of Eternity. Another EP, this one from one of my favorite drummers and just performers overall in the scene. Hannes has worked with everyone from Alkaloid and Obscura to Triptychon and Necrophagist, and his solo efforts are just as strong as any of those, with 4 full lengths already under his belt. Definitely mark your calendars for this one. February 16th, we have Isan with Isan. Emperor will forever be one of my favorite second wave era black metal bands, but frontman Isan's solo work has been some of the most engaging material I find myself looking forward to year after year. Even the albums I don't love end up leaving me with plenty to chew on and reflect about long after listening. This self-titled 8th record will reportedly be made up of both metal and fully symphonic versions of the same tracks, which also makes me think of that Portrayal of Guilt record that topped my list in 2023. February 23rd is a big throwback day for core heads. First up is Job for a Cowboy with Moon Healer. This band is somewhat legendary for being an instrumental part of deathcore history with their debut EP Doom, but quickly moved on from that to more death metal territory and also more progressive directions. And this album, 10 years in the wake of previous records, Sun Eater, seems to be very much picking up where they left off on that progressive focus, and that reminds me also of bands like Inanimate Existence and Obscura. Definitely interested to see how this one comes out, and another tier list I've already planned. Then we also have Darkest Hour with Perpetual Terminal.
This is a revolution. You get what you give and what is it enough?
Another band I like to include in my short list of metalcore groups from that peak era of the genre that are still able to deliver top-notch material. I loved Godless Prophets back in 2017, and the new single leads me to believe that this is going to bring some of that same energy. Another one I'm really looking forward to updating that tier list too, because I've loved this group since The Mark of Judas, and frankly, the first tier list I did was the first face cam I ever did, and it's with a really crappy, low quality it's like webcam. It's awful. Don't watch it. Just wait for me to update it. And then we also have Austrian Death Machine with Quad Brutal. Another case of a band with their first new album in 10 years. This project is fronted by As I Lay Dying's Tim Lambesis, and I describe their sound as basically that, except a little bit heavier and themed around Arnold Schwarzenegger. Definitely digging the riffs from the singles, but I can understand anyone not exactly down to support Tim's endeavors either. It's a decision you have to make for yourself, and personally, seeing this happen in combination with the continued fragmentation of the As I Lay Dying lineup doesn't exactly make me feel like everything's been going great with him interpersonally, but I gotta say, as somebody who loved As I Lay Dying back in the day, they were one of my favorite bands in high school. I just can't resist. I'm interested.
Shame!
And then outside of core on this week, we also have Atoll back already with Inhuman Implants. They broke my brain with the brutality of Human Extract just a few months ago, and so they're ready to do it again already. And then we have Borknagar with Fall. I've been enjoying this band long enough that I should probably do like a rare black metal tier list for them. I don't do a ton of those. Anything ICS Vortex does vocals for is an instant yes for me. Dude has an incredible voice, and aside from his stint with Dimmu Borgir, Borknagar probably has some of my favorite performances from him. And then on February 28th, we have The Obsessed with Gilded Sorrow.
Not forgive, nor forget the way it's gonna be.
Another band I've just never really been a big fan of, not for any particular reason other than personal taste, but obviously, Wino is a legend in his own right, and I'd be remiss to not at least mention that these classic metalers will be dropping their 5th full-length album. Moving to March, on the 1st we have Ministry with Hopium for the Masses.
The goddamn oyster!
I have such mixed feelings about Ministry. Their first 3 albums are among my absolute favorites in industrial music, and they put out some solid material during the Bush era as well, but the newer stuff has been pretty hit and miss. I will say I feel like I was one of the few who actually enjoyed most of Moral Hygiene, and the latest singles feel like they're on about the same wavelength, so I could see this one going either way, but I'm interested, as always. Then on the 8th, we have Judas Priest with Invincible Shield. Arguably the biggest upcoming metal release of 2024 overall, and I've gotta say, I am loving the singles so far. Panic Attack in particular really manages to capture a lot of the energy and catchiness I love about classics from Screaming for Vengeance and Painkiller. Frankly, it's wild how good Rob still sounds, and I am much more excited to share my thoughts on this discography than I was with Iron Maiden.
Definitely throwing shade.
Oh yeah, and speaking of which, Bruce Dickinson is also releasing a new solo album. Also on this day though, we have Apogean with Cyberstrictive. This is a bit more of an underdog release, but what has me stoked about it is it's the latest project featuring Max Smith, who has done killer vocals for Crosis, Alter Beast, and Decrepit Birth. It also doesn't hurt that Mac already reached out and let me check this thing out for myself, so right up there with what I said about Exocrine, modern tech death fans are going to find a lot to enjoy here. March 15th, we have Necrophobic in the Twilight Grey. This Swedish blackened death metal band have been around since 1989, racking up a pretty consistent discography, with this being their 10th album following up 2020's Dawn of the Damned. We also have Dragon Force with Warp Sleep Warriors. Call it corny if you want, and I wouldn't even argue people who say that this band basically just puts out the same album over and over again, but even so, I've enjoyed all of them, and just find their particular modern twist on power metal to be extremely fun and re-listenable. It doesn't hurt that they decided to tap into my childhood nostalgia either, with Zelda on this album, so watch out for a tier list on Dragon Force in 2024. And we have Ultimos with Epic.
Face of bar in silence. No word says I'm not the first to go.
With Flore Mornier of Cryptopsy, Rune Eriksson of Mayhem, and David Vincent of Morbid Angel, this supergroup of sorts is back for more blasphemous blackened death metal, and I see people in the Discord already kind of getting hyped about it. Then we have some stuff that's in production, but with no firm date as of the time I'm recording this on the 20th of December. I'm willing to bet things have been announced since then. Maybe I'll add some as they come. In any case, from the list of things that are either confirmed or at least pretty sure, we're going to probably get a new Brand of Sacrifice, as they just signed to Nuclear Blast and are about due. New The Black Dahlia Murder, the first without Trevor, may he rest in peace. Spirit Box is talking about a new full length. We're probably getting a new Nails, which is kind of exciting. The Halo Effect are talking about something early in 2024. Alcest, Scarea, Deicide, Banished by Sin. They have named the album but have not given a date as of this point. Also, new Anthrax on the way. That'll round out my big 4 tier listing, because I've already done Slayer, Metallica, and Megadeth. You can check those all out. And then also on the kind of lighter side, we have a new POD with Veritas.
I decided it was time for me to live, but the hardest part is trying. They say you either get busy with living or get busy dying.
From the list of things that are hopefully coming out, probably maybe coming out, but just not really sure, we've got Testament. I feel like this one's been on the docket. People talked about it maybe coming out in 2023, but it just didn't happen. So I'm hoping this is the year we get to do that. Hearing about new Possessed, probably new Sodom as well. Always happy to talk about more German thrash metal. Deftones have been talking about something maybe for spring or summer of 2024, but we all know how Deftones do.
I'll get to it when I get to it.
Exodus are talking about something maybe in December, so more thrash greatness there. Fear Factory, maybe Nile. Teasing of Converge Blood Moon 2, Mudvayne, Shamash, Between the Buried and Me, Grayscale Season, Darko, Korn, and Killswitch Engage all are kind of like on that like mid-tier, like maybe they will, maybe they won't. And also, unfortunately on the list, 6 Feet Under, but man is it going to be fun to talk about.
Your music's bad and you should feel bad.
And then finally, a list of things that are kind of long overdue. I think maybe will come out in 2024. I'm predicting they've had stuff in production. So Morbid Angel. We need that new Morbid Angel. They've been working on that for a while. I don't know if we'll see. Also, I don't know if New Atheist is still on the docket. That's something they've talked about, but I know they put out kind of that other project this year. A Day to Remember. They dropped a single, I want to say, at the end of 2022. So I was sure that they were going to put something out in 2023. They did not. Hated the last album, but that single was pretty decent. So I like these guys. I'm interested. Hope they put something out. Maybe Death Angel, maybe Gorguts, maybe Dark Tranquility, Cradle of Filth, Dream Theater, Gojira, Limp Bizkit, and also Rotting Christ and Siktiricon. And again, some of the statuses of these things may have changed since I made this recording. I can't hit them all. It's just impossible for me to do that. And also, there are probably plenty of things that have been announced that I'm not mentioning here. My goal is not to hit on everything, but just to say I am excited for another year. 2023 was amazing. Y'all have been amazing. I can't wait to share more content with you, have more conversations with you in the comments, on the Discord. Thank you so much for your support. Comment what you're most excited about this year coming up, and support me on Patreon if you want to take that extra jump. But looking forward to another great year. I will see you in the trenches.